In recent years, Chinese-built utes have made real progress, and this is the latest example. It's the LDV T60 Max, and the big news is it has a 2-litre bi-turbo diesel engine, a 4-cylinder one, and it pips some of the big-name utes like Hilux and Ranger in terms of power and matches them on torque. But will it ever really challenge them in the sales stakes? Well, that's what we're here to find out, so stick around. This video is going to have plenty of detail about the T60 Max, but if you want to know something in particular, you can skip ahead. There are time codes on the screen now, and if you're watching this video on YouTube, there are chapter markers below. And another thing, before we get stuck into the video proper, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit like, share it with your mates, and make sure you hit subscribe and tap that bell icon while you're at it to stay up to date with all of our content. The T60 Max range has two variants, the Pro and the Lux, where in the Lux, the T60 Max is available with a 6-speed manual gearbox or an 8-speed ZF automatic transmission. I'm driving the Auto. Standard features in the Lux include a 10.25-inch multimedia touchscreen, and that has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, 6-way electronically adjustable leather trimmed seats, LED daytime running lights, a 360-degree panoramic camera, lane departure warning, and more. The T60 Max Lux Auto has a driveway price tag of $40,490 for ABN holders and $42,621 for non-ABN holders. It also has a Borg-Warner torque-on-demand system, high and low range 4-wheel drive, and a rear diff lock. We'll throw the T60 Max's dimensions up on screen now, but remember, if you're after all of the nitty-gritty details, and I'm talking about specs and everything else, make sure you read my full yarn on the Cars Guide website. In terms of styling, it has a pretty good sporty look about it. It reminds me a lot of the GWM Cannon X, which I drove recently. And you can't blame the Chinese companies for borrowing heavily from established ute brands in Australia. There are more than a few nods and winks to established ute brands, such as the Hilux at the front here. There's a fair bit of the Triton Dynamic Shield treatment on the sides here, and there are more than a few hints at Ranger styling down the side. At the back, it has quite bold T60 Max styling across the tailgate, and inside that tub, there's a spray-in tub liner and 4 pretty sturdy looking tie-down points. What may put off some potential buyers is the absence of side steps, roof rails, and something like a sports bar. Up front, you are pretty well catered for and you're rather comfortable. The seats are nice and supportive, but otherwise there are expanses of hard plastic everywhere, and perhaps if you're buying something that is the Lux variant, you might be forgiven for expecting a bit more on the plush side of things, but I like it. It is kind of basic and kind of bare bones. The interior up front is dominated by that big touchscreen multimedia system. We managed to get Apple CarPlay working really quickly, and it's kind of an intuitive system, easy to work out once you get your head around it. In terms of storage, you get the usual glove box and center console with some cup holders there, door pockets for your bottles, and you get the 2 USB sockets and the 12-volt there. Everything else is pretty easy to use and pretty easy to understand as you go. And again, it's all pretty basic, but I like it. Inside the T60 Max is a neat and tidy space. There isn't a lot going on in here, but you do get the usual stuff you'd expect in a dual cab ute. Air vents, power socket, lights, map pockets on the back of the seats in front, and you get fold down armrest, a bit of a dual cab ute staple with the cup holders there. In terms of space, I have plenty of it, but then again, I am the size of a garden gnome, as I always tell you. I'm sitting behind my driving position and I've got a heap of knee room, and otherwise I've got plenty of shoulder and headroom. It's pretty comfortable, and there are some nice touches like the red stitching on the leather trimmed seats. As I mentioned earlier, the big news about this ute is the engine. It's a 2-litre 4-cylinder bi-turbo diesel engine, and it produces 160 kilowatts of power and 500 newton meters of torque. Now that means not only does it edge out big name rivals like the Hilux and the Ranger, it well and truly beats rivals like the Nissan Navara, Mazda BT50 and Isuzu D-Max in terms of power and torque. And it is a long way ahead of its Chinese-built rival, the GWM Cannon X. On road, the news is pretty good. It's a surprisingly nice ute to drive, especially for a Chinese-built workhorse at this price point. The bi-turbo engine is unstressed and has a real relaxed quality about it, and works so well with the 8-speed ZF automatic transmission that it's a real cluey pairing and a no muss, no fuss kind of unit. The Aussie tuned suspension, leaf springs at the back and an independent front end, the double wishbones, works pretty well to smooth everything out, and it's not as jittery or skippy as you might expect in an unladen ute. What's interesting is I'm driving this back to back with the GWM Cannon X, another well-known Chinese-built ute. And while the Cannon X was refined and quiet and almost subdued, when I first slid into this T60 Max, it kind of felt a little bit raucous, a little bit raw, but I've quickly grown to like that, and to me that's a big plus in its appeal because it's operating almost in a different market than the Cannon X. The T60 Max is more of a tilt at a high performance ute rather than a gentler lifestyle ute like the Cannon X. Visibility is pretty good all round. Steering retains a nice balance on road. It's height adjustable only, which is not ideal, but you can get close enough to approximate your favourite driving position. So overall, this ute manages to be pretty decent on road, probably to the surprise of a fair few. And what's more, at this price point, it's got to be a pretty appealing option. And it's not too shabby off-road either. Well, as you'd expect with so much power and torque to tap into, that's not a problem, and there's plenty of torque at low revs, so low range four-wheel driving isn't an issue. And the four-wheel drive system is pretty cluey. You can leave it in auto and it'll decide whether you should be in rear-wheel drive or in four-wheel drive, but you also have a two-wheel drive option and a four-wheel drive high range option and a four-wheel drive low range option, so that all checks out. And while the Aussie tuned suspension can feel a little bit firm when you're going at speed on corrugated tracks and rough dirt roads, it does soften things out when you're doing low speed, low range four-wheel driving. Ground clearance at 250mm is okay, wading depth is 550mm. None of that signals to me that this in stock standard form is a hardcore off-roader. As well as the T60 Max's torquey engine, that grunty engine, you can also call upon driver assist tech like hill descent control, hill hold assist, and you've got to remember this has also got an on-demand rear diff lock. When you're four-wheel driving, it's absolutely essential that you can creep across terrain at low speeds and in full control, and that's possible in the T60 Max because you've got so much torque that you can access. Unbrake towing capacity is 750 kilograms and brake towing capacity is 3,000 kilograms. As standard, it has 6 airbags, electronic brake assist, hill descent control, lane departure warning and more, but the absence of AEB is a big mark against the T60 Max. Official fuel consumption is 9.3 litres per 100 kilometres on a combined cycle. Our actual fuel consumption on this test was 10.6 litres per 100 kilometres. If you drive like me, you should get an effective range of about 700 kilometres out of the 73 litre fuel tank, and that's when doing a mix of road and dirt tracks and some of that low range four-wheel driving I mentioned. But that fuel range grows to about 785 kilometres and up if you can get your fuel use closer to that official fuel consumption figure. All LDV T60s have a 5-year 130,000 kilometre warranty, and that's okay, but it's at a time when unlimited kilometre warranties are not unheard of. 5-year 130,000 kilometre roadside assist is available. The LDV T60 Max marks another big step forward for Chinese-built utes. This is reasonably well put together and reasonably priced, and what it lacks in finesse, it makes up for with a real purpose-built sense about it. Sure, it doesn't have some of the relative refinement of its Chinese-built GWM Cannon X rival, but it offers a solid high-performance alternative to other utes in this price range, and who knows, it might even lure a buyer or two away from its other more expensive competitors. Stranger things have happened. But what do you reckon? Would you have a crack at an LDV T60 Max over a more established ute brand? Have your say in the comments section below.